loved your presentation. I especially like the framework and your analogy of imagining this community landscape with the stoplight. And it made me think of this recent essay that came out by Umar Haque, which is Why Twitter's Dying. And it's all about online harassment. And so, you know,
that's a good phrase.
And thinking about online harassment, and your analogy is really like being verbally harassed on the street or threatened. And I had a very personal example happen this morning with one of Reported Girl's story contributors. It was not on our platform, but on a separate space. Some really heavy victim blaming, minimization from this male individual towards one of our story contributors. And I reached out to her. She lives in Tanzania right now, but she told me she had a panic attack because of it. And so my question is sort of, you know, from your perspective, how can you imagine putting that lens to harassment?
Totally.
And yeah.
I have a concrete example of that. Facebook actually has a team. I'm not, by the way, anti-Facebook in any way. They actually have a really great team that I forgot what they call it. They used to call it the compassion team, and then they got in a lot of trouble because people wanted to know what that meant. I think they now call it like the trust and safety team. And there's a guy named Arturo Bahar who basically he integrated all the principles of nonviolent communication and compassion and the Greater Good Science Center in Berkeley, which does positive psychology research, and found out that there was a lot of cyberbullying going on within Facebook. So specifically, teenagers post photos of friends they're trying to humiliate and then tag them in those photos. And then the person who is tagged and wants that photo taken down hits report photo, and it creates this huge volume of customer service requests for Facebook. So what his team did is they basically used the principles of nonviolent communication so that when the person says report photo, it asks that person first, how did that make you feel? Which is the first step of nonviolent communication. And once they got that, then they had a pre-populated message that basically it sort of like helped them assemble a way of talking to that person who is the bully. And they were able to increase the takedown rate of photos by like 70%. And they also cut customer service inquiries by a huge amount. Don't quote me on 70%, you can look it up. But the idea was that there are principles that are sort of social design principles, very similar to what I'm doing here. The idea with the chat is that there's an underlying preference between two people. People don't want to, it's not that I always want to interrupt you and that I want to ding you in the head every single time I have something to say. It's that I didn't know that you have some underlying preference and I didn't know your state. And I also, and the other person, like want to know if I'm missing something important. But if you can gather that underlying preference and then like help coordinate a better way of both people communicating, that's really what marriage counselors and couples counseling and nonviolent communication are about. So I think there are some design principles that would be included, or should be included in some kind of empowering design framework that says there's a whole social part of empowering design that's about basically like applying nonviolent communication principles to software. And that should someone should do that for comment sites and a whole bunch of things like that.